Well, they serve a different function, and their emanation is different, but they are equally as important. The thing that I found in my journeying, however, was that because I wanted to know, what is the difference? And the thing is, Christ, because he stands in position of Messiah, he's in a higher station, and he's within in the Godhead. The Buddha is one of the prophets, and so the royal family of God, the prophets, saints, mystics, sages, ascetics, and seers, and all that, they all work together for the betterment of God's kingdom, and they all work under the headship of Christ. But there is no issue with that, because they all work together. It's just that Christ has a higher station because he is of a higher station. It's no different than like a guardian angel has no problem acknowledging that Saint Michael is an archangel. First, you know what I mean? It's there is no one of the things in our world that we've done is we've gotten so obsessed with equality about everything that we have forgotten that there is nothing wrong with acknowledging powers and hierarchies and as they exist, and in fact that is necessary in the worlds of the spirit, and in fact in the worlds of progress there will be delineations that are made, because that's just the way it works. You move from here to here to here to here, and that's how it works.
Let's get into some more cool stuff.
Okay.
That
Cool.
sound good?
Okay.
How about Oversoul, Multiplicity, and Timelessness?
Okay. Well, the Oversoul is this is when you're looking at groupings of souls, there can be an Oversoul that kind of manages a grouping of souls that might transmigrate together. The second one was it Multiplicity?
Yes.
Multiplicity is the way that we branch down in the triangle. I use that symbol a lot. The triangle up at the top is the oneness, down at the bottom is multiplicity. That's where we branch out into many personalities, many identities, many creations. Multiplicity is creation, the world of creation. Oneness is where we are all united with God up here at the one point. And the other one was, what was that?
And multiplicity and multidimensional. I mean, multiplicity can be multidimensional, but multidimensional doesn't have to be multiplicity.
No, multidimensionality is just referring to the multidimensional nature of the universe, whereas multiplicity is referring to the multiplicitous nature of the soul and of mankind, and that these are, the multiplicitous extensions of one single soul. We are not one thing. We are many, many, many things, and that's the multiplicitous nature of the human soul. Multidimensional means that we have many, many, many dimensions that we're working with.
And by the way, the last term was timelessness.
Timelessness is the realms that we travel where time is not relevant. You are living in the eternal now, you are existing in the eternal now, and all things can be accessed from there, the past, present, future, and there is a space known as just the eternal now, which is where God resides. And it's a very mystically powerful, it's just hard to put it, but it's a very, very intense place.
Sounds like a great place to
It
meditate.
is. It's
To
cool. It
meditate.
is. It
Right?
is.
Now, I'm sure like most of us, we're aware of past lives and future lives. But you put it a really unique way in this book where you say past life recall of a future life.
Yep, because you can have past lifetimes, that are either in the future, the present, or the past, parallels. So the actual time continuum that your lifetimes may be upon could be going backwards and forwards and all the way around. You just don't know.
Mhm.
So.
And you and I are both hypnotherapists, and
Mhm.
you've been working with clients with past life work, right? And you'll do like a solid like 3 hours on them or something. Are you
Yeah.
also doing past life recalls with future lives as well?
Yes. Mhm.
So, and how many lifetimes do you typically go through in a session with somebody, or do you try to go deep with the
We
session?
do. It's different with each person depending on what they're comfortable with. Some people up to 5. Some people it'll be 1 or 2, depending on, a lot depends on as well where they're at and what they're uncovering, and what seems relevant, and where we need to, we kind of follow the lead of the person and where they're leading us.
And what is your goal with doing this type of work? Just to make it
We're
aware?
trying to uncover patterns. We're trying to find things that might explain either personality trends, behavioral trends, issue trends, relationship trends, or things that give clues to issues in the current time continuum. I do a lot too with people who just have stuff they need to root out from their current time frame, their current lifetime. And so some people will focus on just getting some things cleared out from this incarnation, and that can be helpful to a lot of people, and they may not need to go into a past lifetime. It's some people do it because they're just curious and they want to know, but most of the time people are looking for a reason of some kind, looking for patterns.
So like karmic impetuses,
Yeah.
and maybe
Mm-hmm.
trying to make it more into having them have eternal impetuses as opposed to
Yes.
karmic.
And trying to figure out if there are uh, things that they can identify in their current relationships with, spouses, family, friends, children, that they might be able to see the pattern and then take a look at what they might be able to do differently.
Now you brought up faulty memory. What would that be like? Why would we have faulty memory?
Well, hypnosis, like anything else, is not it is not infallible, and so you have to be careful about the fact that people can have uh, remember things in ways that are slightly different than it may have actually occurred. So you have to keep that in mind. If they have been in any way coached or encouraged to believe certain things, you want to do everything you can to get rid of any biases or previous biases like that, so that people can try to really set themselves aside and access the best possible memories they can. But most people are going to have some biases, and you have to account for that there's going to be some biases and some things in the things that they see and do, and that's okay. Just don't take everything as some like infallible reality that this is exactly what happened. Sometimes this is how someone might have perceived something happened, and then you have to take that apart more so that you can try to understand, again, windows of perception. Was it because of an age issue? Was it because of, it's in a past life? Was it because they were told something and they misperceived something happened, and they still believe that this is what happened currently, but yet the truth is still there for them to uncover? And unfortunately, karma is filled with stuff like that, where people were lied to, or they believed something that wasn't true, or whatever. And so you have to kind of mull through. And so, when anyone gets convinced that any type of, you don't want to go into a hypnosis of a past life memory or something like this, with the idea that it's infallible, that it's, just like you don't want to go in and have an absolute, word for word interpretation of the Old Testament. You want to have the ability to read it within the context of history. You want to read, all of these things within various contexts. And you want to put them through various screens, so that you are not, so that you're not reinforcing another false view, or another, like, okay, I told you that's what it is. You know what I mean? You want to find out, well, is that really what it is? Let's make sure. Let's make sure that's what it is, because if that's really what it is, then why does it keep coming up? There's something we're missing. There's something there that we're not getting to. So the faulty memories can come up, and that can come up too in lucid dreams and in out-of-body experiences, where we have to be aware of the fact that things can be colored a little bit by our own perceptions at the time of our experience of them, and by the time frame, the time in history. There's so many things that we have to take into consideration. We can't just, you don't want to throw things like this into blocks of political or social correctness according to our current time frame. You have to understand things according to the times in which you are now peering, because that's the only way that you will find something and be able to discern what will be helpful from it. You see?
And even if someone's, you have this one thing that you wrote, thinking is directing thought self-consciously, forming the nucleus of a retentive memory. So even if we're thinking, directing our thought self-consciously, that doesn't mean that it's not colored with our own judgments, our own thoughts, our own distractions, our own issues, so that the retentive memory, the nucleus of the retentive memory that we have, might not be somewhat faulty as well. I don't know how that accurately people do necessarily retain memory.
Well, and St. Augustine, who was one of the greatest Catholic writers, he wrote, one of his last books that he wrote was called The Retractions. And he wrote that book near the end of his life to retract the things that, after a long life of experience, he realized, I no longer believe this to be true, or this, and I take this back, and I take this back. And I think that is a very valuable lesson for all of us, which is that life and experience, if we are diligent, honest seekers, will alter things for us. We will change our views. And so we have to be willing to be modified as life teaches us. And that's what St. Augustine's Retractions teaches us, that if we are receptive to God's influx from the Holy Spirit, we are going to look back and say, well, now that I've experienced the last 20 years, I would approach this differently. And it only makes sense that we would do that, right?
Right, as we grow and evolve, and
Mm-hmm.
and apparently, like every 7 years, every single cell in our body, 100
Yep.
trillion cells in our body has been replaced. So we're a completely
Right.
different being. Now, one of the reasons I bring up like 2 or 3 terms in a question is because I think it's more interesting and it gives us a larger scope of meaning of the multiple terms I bring up for a question, because we kind of get to look at all of them at the same time.
Yeah.
So cellular, generational, and DNA memory. What do you have to say?
Yeah. So the cellular memory is memory that we can carry within ourselves that actually comes sometimes from past lives. Sometimes it comes from genetics. Sometimes it comes from the just the even the cellular memory of humankind. Okay, so when you're looking at so we had cellular, generational, and DNA. Is that
Yeah.
correct?
Mhm.
Generational memory. You'd be surprised how much memory we carry of our ancestors within us, ironically, in our DNA. And in our DNA, we're going to carry actually the ability to pull into memories from lifetimes that ancestors of ours actually lived out. We also have the capacity to touch into experiences of various generational memories. And so some of the things that we can touch into have to do with our own family line. But this is where we also then go into cellular memory, which can be either attached to our own past lives, but it can also be attached to humankind itself. Because again, remember, we're going to unitive consciousness, which we're all one. So we are all in the end one. And by the very nature of our cellular structure, we have the capacity to connect to all existence, all experience throughout all time. And so we can actually touch into the memories of all life that has happened. And I mean, this is really an amazing thing. But then, you know, this is where you touch into what scientists have been talking about, having discovered, where they have found that they can do something to a cell on one side of the universe, and they see that that impacts a cell on the other side of the universe. That, and it's because of this connection, this unitive connection, unitive consciousness, and the fact that it is all cellularly connected. And we see this in the mystical spheres. We see it, and now they're starting to see it scientifically.
And it's called entanglement.
Yes.
Yeah. and it's instantaneous, or
Mm-hmm.
they've conjectured like, or it's 10,000 times the speed of light.
Something like that, yeah.
Okay, yeah. So it's instantaneous. But then there's even like the ideas that they know that it's going to happen before it even happens.
That's true. You're right. I'd forgotten about that. But yes, that they even sense that ahead of time. And how cool is that? Because that even shows us how the things that we
Predetermination.
are taught about the management realm and alteration, and how that is all playing out on these subatomic levels.
Mhm. And then if you get into like the works of Walter Russell, have you heard of him?
I have not.
He's, I think he was a contemporary of Einstein, but his theories was that light doesn't move. It's just everywhere all the time. And it seems like his theories are looking more legit than
Well,
Einstein.
that's interesting.
It would make kind of sense, wouldn't it? Why does it have to even move in the universe? Like, oh, I'm gonna come from here to here. It's like, maybe it's just everywhere all at once, you know?
Maybe.
Like some dark places over here, like the light hasn't come yet, you know? Yeah. It's like, you know, one of the things about a lot of science is it's based on theories. And then they try to prove them mathematically. And sometimes it's just like, you know, you guys are really keeping yourselves busy there. I got this idea. You know, it's wormholes. You got to watch out for them to collapse because they might collapse on you. Yeah, you talk about that in the first chapter of The Hammer of Mysticism, you know, because they had some caveats about the wormholes, you know. Watch out, it might collapse on you, or you might not be able to get back to where you started from, or, you know, and it's just like, how are you guys coming up with these things? And now if you were mystically traveling there and experiencing it, that's one thing, you know, and apparently Einstein invented E equals MC squared while he was sleeping in a dream or lucid dream or whatever. It is on a moonbeam, I guess. And like, boo-doo-doo, E equals MC squared. I'm a genius. Give me some awards. But yeah, so there's much more practicality in mysticism than there is in, you know, legit science, where, you know, especially theoretical science. So, you know, just coming up with ideas. It's like theories. Listen, I have a theory. You know, it's totally different if like, I had this experience and I went here and this happened. Me too. I know. All 1,000 of us, the same thing happened. Really? Yeah. I have a theory about that. Let me go right, you know, it's like, no.
But, you know, what's important, though, not to diminish here is the unique gift of those who pursue the truth through science as well. You know, I mean, for instance, like they did a movie, I don't know, a few years back on this brilliant mathematician out of India who just had an innate gift and, you know, was able to mathematically quantify all sorts of things that a lot of people before him were unable to do. And I don't even think he was able to go to the schools that everyone else was. And this was literally a mystical gift that had been given to him, you know, and a lot of times this is the case. And even when you talk about Einstein, he spoke openly about how many of his theories came to him in dreams. And he was very open about the fact that he felt that these things were very connected. And so the more that we work together as mystics and scientists and artists, et cetera, the more we respect one another's gifts, the more we will find that we can accomplish, you know,
right.
Because the, you know, these things all complement one another.
Right.
And
we can work together as
mm-hmm.
opposed to like, you're crazy. No, you're crazy. Kind of like back to that polarity and the adversarial and as opposed to working together for the truth.
Yeah.
Let's talk about animal and plant teachers.
Oh, yes. Well,
you have some teachers in your house right now, don't you?
I do. Love them. Yeah, so, you know, and I think that we're going to find actually, and I think we're seeing just the cusp of this now, but we're going to find that the animal and plant kingdom have so much more to teach us mystically than we now know. Because the interesting things they're finding scientifically about trees and the ways that they communicate with one another, the way that they take care of their saplings and all of this stuff is just fascinating. So I think it's going to be very interesting.
And there was the book, The Secret Life of Plants, right?
Uh-huh.
Where they had like the flame and they had like a detector that showed like emotional level of the plant or something, and then it was all chill, and then they put the flame close to it, and all of a sudden it was like, hey, get that thing away from me, right? So, you know, the plant was aware of something going on. It had consciousness, right? And yeah, I want to interject that one.
Yeah, and I talk to mine, so I guess it's good that I've always talked to my plants. I guess they probably listen. But yes, so we learn a lot through um, the animals and the plants, and we go through initiations that way too. And I don't know if we've talked about this yet, so you'll have to let me know if I'm on the right track here of where you're going. But we're taken into various life forms, and keep going that I don't know which way because it's like
That's good.
backwards.
Perfect.
Okay, and so so you're taken into different forms of plant life, tree life, things like this, just to experience what those different forms of life are, and in animal life as well. And there is
And they have their own memories.
Yeah, they do.
Cellular, DNA,
Yeah, they do.
ancestral, and
it's a really fascinating process when you go through those initiations, because really it's a very Zen initiation to go through those things into those life forms, because you enter into just going from one life form to another and embracing that singular purpose. This way? Okay.
yeah, just because the sound kind of.
And so the singular purpose being, like, so when you're becoming a tree.
That sounds like an Udemy class. Becoming a Tree with Marilynn
I
Hughes.
love it. Let's do it. I mean, yeah,
That'd be like a 12-hour class.
Yeah, I mean, I had this tree that I had an initiation into once, and it was in a place I used to live, and it was this beautiful pine tree that was outside where I lived in Colorado, and this big tall one. And for years after that initiation, I would meditate on that tree, because it was like I had some type of innate experience of that tree. I mean, there's still, I'm not saying much, but I'm trying. This is
Words
again
are coming
another.
out.
Words are
Words are
coming
flowing.
out. Words are flowing.
I always notice too, like trees, every tree has a different energy to it.
Yeah, they do.
Because I'll go up, because I did like a bioenergy class, and just go out into nature and like feel stuff and sense the energy and just be with it. But like every single tree I ever like get close to and touch, it's like some are like a little nervous, and some are just totally chill. Some are blissful. Some are emanating like some great energy. They all have their own personalities.
Yeah, they do. And what's interesting about the animals, the plants, and the trees is that these are beings. One of the things I learned about them that you'll find out and experience in the initiations into the mysteries. Plants and animals didn't fall from grace in the Garden of Eden. We did. Human beings did. And so plants and animals and trees and things like that, they still fulfill their function to perfection. So when you enter into them, you're entering into their program, which is very simple and very clear.
Which is beautiful.
It is. It's a very beautiful, very simple, very Zen experience. And
talk about being still.
Like
you're a plant. It's like, wow, you can just like totally be aware. If you don't really have anything to do except just be there and be present.
Oh, but then you got to jump, you got to hop into the bunny so that you can just be hopping around the forest.
Oh, yeah.
Because that's what bunnies do.
How often do...
Sometimes you got to just be in the stallion so you can be like, whoo!
Yeah. Which animal was your favorite one experiencing? Do you remember?
Hmm. Well, I would say that my favorite being was the tree, the big, tall pine tree. Um,
I love pine trees.
yeah, because it was just very peaceful and quiet place to be. And you know, you think you really have this sense of the time, you know, because these are beings who, these trees have often been in the same place for a few hundred years, if not more. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
so, you know, there's a history to them, and there's a
Perspective.
there's a perspective. That's very well said too. But there's also this like, wow, this tree watched an awful lot of history in this place.
A lot of lifetimes just going by from
Yeah.
a little toddler, like old dude to, yeah, to
Yeah, I mean, you
kid.
can sense these things, and there's just a real timelessness to a tree, an old tree, a
Let
lot, you know.
let me ask
So
you, do you, are any of your animals like a human soul inside of them?
mine aren't,
Do you,
but
yes, go ahead.
I have determined and given them the status of personhood.
Ooh.
Yes, because they are persons in my eyes.
Do you believe that any animals here on Earth have human souls within them, or souls that were human that came back and then decided to just to be in a body, maybe go into animal form, or maybe were
I don't think that it is
demoted?
common. The only time I have seen that happen was when, particularly in cases where a soul has violated eternal law to such a degree with a with a really serious amount of evil, where they are placed into an animal form um, to protect others from them. And oftentimes, when that's the case, they're actually just sent back to the lower spheres.
Mhm.
But there are some cases where they will be put into an animal form. Um, but I have not seen that.
Okay.
Usually, you know, animal souls and the souls of plants and trees are a different form of energy than we are, you know. And so, you know, it's okay that we have different orders of creation, you know, just like there's different hierarchies of angels. We get really caught up in the fact of everything must be equal, but you know, it's not, and it's okay that it's not. It's just different, you know. And this is what one of the things in the initiations into the mysteries that delineates for us the beauty of all these differences. You know, we first of all learn, um, you know, we're moving towards this unit of consciousness, unit of oneness, but we are also experiencing the beauty of the diversity.
Now, speaking of delineation, and this is the encyclopedic journey into mystical processes and terms. And so I'd like
Mm-hmm.
to really delineate really small things about terminology so that I'm very clear about it.
Okay.
So afterlife particle dispersion, is that the same as residue or residual energy?
It's a little bit different. The afterlife particle dispersion is going to be something that every soul will have. Um, that is going to be, you know, for those who actually work with those who are dying or those who have just died, they will probably be familiar with this because they feel it. If you talk to them, a lot of them will often say they feel it. Not all of them will, but where you will feel when a soul is departing and there is this energy in the room that is still there. The afterlife particle dispersion will be around, and it's energy that can be scattered to loved ones, but it can also be scattered to other souls who are um, who are going to participate in sharing of that somehow. Sometimes people who are involved in the passing process, nurses, doctors, will receive some of that. Some of the caregivers receive some of that, or just close friends, or whoever is nearby. But that's why people who participate in those processes will often mention that, because they feel it. They may not know what to call it, but it's that particle, because the energies are dispersing from the body. In the Tibetan Book of the Dead, they talk about this a little bit. They call it something else, but it's the same thing. So residue is actually something that is more attached to unfulfilled destinies or fates that still have to be addressed. Whereas this is just energy that is just remaining with the body, with the soul as it departs. And so it's a little bit more random where it's going to be dispersed. And so it can go, it doesn't have to be so specific as to who it goes to.
Gotcha. What is the universal flame of life? That sounds pretty cool.
It is.
It's super cool.
Yeah, you know, the universal flame of life. But let me just make sure I'm referring to what you're referring to. Are you in
Yeah,
chapter 1?
I'm still in the mechanics of existence.
Okay, so if you are,
And we're just
okay,
coming.
so you are probably referring to that from one of these quotations. So the universal flame of life as coming out of the secret doctrine of the Rosicrucians, is that what you're referring to?
Yeah.
It's often not, it's very similar, and in fact they refer to it here as the eternal flame. It is, which we've talked about in our talks. The eternal flame is the ignition of the eternal flame is a big portion. This happens shortly after the first thrust of the initiations into the mysteries, the ignition of that, the eternal flame being ignited. And
okay.
it's let's see, blah 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 blah, just seeing if there's anything in here that's different from that. But you know that they're referring to it in reference to life itself. But you know, the eternal flame and the universal flame of life is really that which is immortal, that is dormant in most souls until it is reignited. And that happens during the initiations into the mysteries. And so many souls, a majority of souls, if they are not awakened, that is not ignited within them. And so it is a little bit of a misnomer to look at the eternal flame as being life itself, because it has to be ignited to actually energize that next phase of the spiritual journey. So it is really, it's really more of that eternal life, that eternal light, that eternal forward thrust, the mission forward. So when that eternal flame is ignited, it is an indication that the soul has made certain choices and gotten through certain tests and initiations to move into higher purpose, higher spiritual purpose. And so this is a spiritual life that has been born anew within them. And so it's not just life as in physical life that is alive. It is the spiritual life reignited, moving ever forward now, reignited in service to God.